That was the heavy discussion on dissent over the course of the last 24 hours. Nathan Buckley is in the house, Bucks. Gee, she was a big day at AFL House yesterday.
Good morning. I think you need to get way back sort of further into your nose. But I mean, I didn't do it well, but good morning. Good morning.
I'll never get that out of my head now. I'm working on it, okay?
No.
It's hump day. I reckon by Friday I'll have the pitch.
It's just, it probably speaks to how Jared's voice just cuts through, doesn't it? Like when you hear a guy every day around, either on TV or on radio, and you respect him for his views and he's so well researched, it's I'm not saying that I'm disappointed that you're sitting there, mate, but he's a great operator, isn't he?
He is. He's the best. I reckon
Advice for you, don't press the cough button while you're talking.
Yeah. All right, I'll work on my delivery. You work on your button pushing, okay? Does Brad Scott need to work on anything? What did you think of him yesterday?
Look, if we look at the big picture, the AFL did exactly what they needed to do, and Brad Scott's the perfect bloke to deliver that because he does willful disdain really well, Brad. Like, I'm not concerned about the paraphernalia. I'm not even concerned about how people feel about the fact that a couple of free kicks have been given for arms outstretched, because that's not the issue. The issue the AFL have, and I don't like that free kick. I don't think there's many people that do like that free kick. But the issue the AFL are trying to stamp out, or the issue that they're trying to improve, is relations with umpires and respect for umpires and the officiating element of the game.
No one's arguing with that.
So if we're not arguing with that, you can't be disappointed with the AFL doubling down and saying that we are here to change the way. For a long time, we don't think it's been acceptable, and we are here to change the way that the umpires are viewed and treated in a public sense, through vision for people that are watching the game at the top level, for for the way that they are spoken to in the moment by the players and the relationship between the players. So they're trying to establish the umpires back at the top of the tree, and that their word is final and that they cannot be questioned in that moment. They're trying to reestablish that, and they are hoping that that flows through to community football. That's debatable, because I think they come. I don't know if the dearth of 6,000 umpires at the bottom level, I don't know if that's all due to people throwing their arms up on an AFL field.
Yeah.
So, but they are saying that they believe that this is a key part of it, and respect for umpires is a key part of it. And I think it's really clear where the AFL are coming from, and the bigger ideal we all agree in.
So are you a believer that it can be applied consistently and the players will adapt? And we hear people like Jack Rewald, who we just heard, say it's human nature to throw your arms up. For some players it would be, some players it wouldn't be. Will they learn quickly, and will this become a...
Well, let's learn from history. Remember little pushes in the chest, or punches in the gut, or punches in the arm? Like, they went for weeks. They went for weeks a couple of years ago. You couldn't even put your hands in the back of an opponent a couple of years ago.
But that was binned.
But they're not necessarily binned. They've just been evolved and adapted. Todd Curley got 9 weeks for incidental umpire contact because he didn't, like, this is way back when, because he should have been more aware of where the umpire was. We haven't spoken about that, and there's been incidental little contact with umpires at different times, and it's not an issue now. Arms up will only be an issue whilst it's focused on, and there will be some free kicks that we don't agree on. And there will be, in 6 to 8 weeks' time, there'll be plenty of arms up where free kicks aren't paid, because the umpires won't feel like that's dissent. And that's fine. That's not the issue. The issue is the relationship with the umpires is put on a pedestal, and that we want to improve the respect for umpires. So what I'm saying is, let's not get caught up in it. Like, Brad Scott didn't want to get drawn into the specifics. Because the specifics are less relevant than the bigger picture.
Yeah.
And they'll do whatever they need to do to make sure the bigger picture is acknowledged. And right now we're talking about respect for umpires, which is
surely
exactly
there's
what we should be focusing on.
Surely there's still a common sense line, though, and we're all reaching for common sense on, dissent and a disappointment in oneself or even appealing for things, surely we will find the middle ground here. I've got faith that we will. I might be naive.
There'll be middle ground between some of the comments that Brad Scott made. Brad Scott said the umpire's there to adjudicate the rules as they stand. Bang.
Yep.
That's a flag in the ground on one side. But he also said, and the umpire will have the discretion to choose whether there's dissent or not. So, but that is an umpire. Like when you go out, you prepare an umpire, you coach them. They know the rules. They're experienced at different levels in different situations to get as many decisions right as they can. They are not perfect. Like every person that runs around on the MCG and every coach that sits in the coach's box and every spectator that sits in the stands, they are not perfect. They do make mistakes. But they are people that are ultimately charged with executing the rules of the game. And at the moment, they are charged for taking responsibility for the way they are treated by the players and the way they feel in front of the players. And they are the only ones that can make that determination in the moment.
Plenty of texts coming through. I'll park them as we go. 0433 98 11 16. Temper a mattress like no other. Staging. Tom Hawkins, no stranger to the tribunal, it must be said, but he got away with one yesterday in the eyes of many. He wasn't fined. He, for lack of a better phrase, he escaped under the AFL's excessive clause. It wasn't deemed excessive. The push from Sam Frost. What say you?
I wasn't surprised that he got away with that because Sam Frost's intent was really clear, and that was to take him out of the contest. There's no doubt that Tom Hawkins exaggerated that contact and actually facilitated it, but because he's a big boy. If he really wanted to dig his left foot in, come back into the contact of Sam Frost. But it doesn't take away the fact that the defender was trying to shepherd his forward away from the ball.
But he did exaggerate the contact, didn't he?
Yeah, there's no doubt he did. This is a creative game. We are a creative game. It's not black and white. This is what makes it so. This is the hardest game in the world to adjudicate. We're just talking about umpires having to worry about whether they pay for a 50-metre penalty for players that put their arms up after they've made a decision. Think about this. So the umpire's made a call on Tom Hawkins giving him a free kick, knows that it's been exaggerated a little, can't change his mind because I think there was enough in there from Frost, I've paid the free kick. It wasn't him that gave the 50, it was the umpire in the middle of the ground.
Yeah.
But imagine having to therefore flick straight away and adjudicate whether there's dissent or not when in your own mind you're still trying to work out, geez, that was a 55-45 call. Did I make that right one? Because you're human. So you're thinking, I don't want to double down and make a second error. So the mindset and the emotions of the umpire or the adjudicator at any time are going to influence the next decisions as well. We can't ignore that.
But just on staging, isn't this why we need to get rid of staging altogether? We need to discuss the umpiring is hard enough as it is without having to play judge, jury, and executioner on players flopping.
Players are trying to win. Teams are trying to win. And the whole lot, I would suggest
unkillable then.
I would suggest that there are competitors in sports and in business all over the world that are trying to get an edge over their opposition, and what they try to do is take advantage of the laws or the rules as they currently stand. That doesn't mean that they're cheating, but it means that they're playing to the edge of their limits and testing the regime. And I think that's what the responsibility of an elite player is to test the limits of the regime and see where they can find an advantage. And if it's closed up, well, then it's closed up. You go looking in another place. But Tom Hawkins played the game, and most great players and great performers play the game on that edge with the right intent. But if they can if they can test the limit, they'll test it. And if you're not testing the limit, you're not finding out how good you can be, or you're not reaching an elite performance. So I think that's part of the challenge of being a professional performer in any field.
He did know it was coming too. He told Channel 7 afterwards, the guy's 115 kilos. I love the Academy Award memes that have been doing the rounds as well over the last 24 hours. Shooting Stars gave me a good chuckle. So just in general, when you did have your coach's hat on, going into a press conference where You've had a rough run with the officials. I mean, you know the question is coming. I saw Damien Hardwick last week was able to, bite his tongue. John Longmire's had a moment this year. A couple of others have had the burley thrown in the water in front of them, trying to get a big bite. With the crackdown on umpire dissent, of course, at the forefront. So have you ever had those moments where you're going in a press conference, you've been stiffed, and you just know you can't say anything?
Well, I know you've got some material here, but it's over 10 years of senior coaching. You do find yourself in positions, especially if it's a close loss, of feeling like, geez, a couple of umpiring, like we really got dudded today, and the umpiring decisions. If a couple of those had gone our way, the result would be different. And all you want to do is win. So if you feel like a couple of decisions have gone against you and that's impacted the result, it's really hard. It's really hard not to go there. And I always was very conscious of using that as a crutch or an excuse for a performance, because if say there was a couple of goals either way, my focus would largely be around how we could perform better so that those decisions weren't the determiner, that didn't determine the result, and that we needed to focus on the things that we could control more often than not.
Right. Okay. So I'm going to take you back. You're right. We do have a little bit of audio here. It's from 2015. There was a particular game against the Richmond Footy Club, I believe, at the MCG. It was a big one. You'd surrendered the game by 5 points. It was awfully tight, and there was a lot of coulda, shoulda, woulda moments, as there is in any game decided by less than a kick. You had this to say after much pondering on the treatment of your star forward, Travis Cloke.
He dead set gets nothing from the umps. I don't know what it is. I
love it. He dead set gets nothing from the umps. He's only got a sniff to give away a free kick. And it came after a good 5 seconds, I reckon, where you thought to yourself, do I go here or not? And you went.
And if in the longer form that you showed me prior to that coming on here, didn't the journeys prick up and I got about 3 or 4 follow-up questions just begging me to, and that's a version of staging. You've seen the opportunity, you go, okay, well, let's put a little bit more burley in the water and see if we can get this bloke to take the hook. Absolutely.
Well, of course.
Yeah, well, that's what we're talking about. If you got to do your job well, then you've got to try and, all right, let's see if we can get him to really jump on this hook. And the coaches, and that's why the post-match stuff is a little bit of a game, because you're trying to get something out of the coach. The coach is trying to give nothing, but he wants to get the main message out. And if you're a little bit emotive about it and you think the umpire's had something to do, and you want to say, you take a deepie and you find a way to do a passive-aggressive sort of flyby.
Has the praise at the back end. Did you realise in that moment, I've gone too far?
No, I actually have I've always had a healthy respect for the officiating group and how tough that job is. How tough that is a bloody tough job. And I think sometimes the disrespect or the criticism that comes that way, I just think we forget how difficult that job must be, because and you're not going to get it right all the time. So yeah, I think they do. I don't think they do a great job.
For the record,
then and now,
Travis Cloke kicked 3 goals, 1 in that game. He got 1 free kick. He gave 4 away.
Yeah, and those 4 would have been not there. Like, so we lost the game by 5 points. If you give Clokey 4 free kicks and one against, he has another 3 shots on goal. We lose by 2 points.
Hey, Bucks, we've dead set, got to get to a break, okay? So we'll do that when we return. Those lots to get through. I'm keen to ask you about Essendon, Hawthorn. They turn the pilot light back on. How do they do it? And the curiosity that is Carlton's third quarters. All that much more still to come. Lee, Bucks, you know how we were talking about just how masterful Jared is in this chair when you've got clocks and you've got commercial breaks to get to, you've got people in your ears. Elite jokes go right over your head. You delivered one and I completely missed it, as I've been reminded multiple times about.
It's come through on the is it still the temper text? I don't know, but
it is.
I'm fine with that, because I generally laugh at my own gags anyway. So
comedy from Bucks, completely missed by Edmund.
Nah, she's right. It's all good, mate.
One text I was reading though was so topical, given what we're talking about. Before we move on from umpires and the like, this is for Bucks. The Dom Sheed goal in your grand final, of course,
awesome.
2018.
Let's go back there.
Braden Maynard, but how's this? Was held out in a marking contest with Willariola. We know the script. Dom Sheed marks. Braden Maynard holds his arms out in frustration to let the umpire know he's been blocked. Imagine the whole theatre and entertainment of one of the greatest grand finals of all time being taken away and ruined by a 50-metre penalty in that moment, and the mental scars left with the player costing a team a flag from a simple reflex action. That's from Danny.
Well,
in
Danny,
Botanic
it
Ridge.
wouldn't have got to that point because Braden would have got the free kick for being held out of that contest. So it wouldn't, and then maybe, so Braden Maynard gets a free kick that he should have got for Willie Rioli holding him out, and then Willie Rioli holds his arms up in the air, and then we march down 50 metres towards the wing, and then we just ice it for another minute and 15. Let's go back and do that again.
Let's move on. Hawthorn's intensity, and it was intensity in that Easter Monday win over Geelong. It came after a meek surrender to St Kilda a week earlier. So the bring the mouth guard philosophy, is it a thing? Is it real?
It has more impact in today's footy than I reckon it ever has because it's so different to what you know. Most teams in pre-season, like bring the mouth guard, like they're scrimmaging, they're playing 12v12, 15v15, 18v18 games pretty much from the get-go in pre-season. There's not as much breakdown. Well, there still are breakdown drills to school and execute parts of your game plan, but you're actually banging bodies and hitting hard, doing tackling work and grunt work and contested work as early as we ever have. But when you get into season, it's largely about maintenance. And you don't, and especially the early games in a season are so demanding and taxing physically that most of your weekday is about recovery. Most of that gap between games is about recovery. Hawthorn had a decent gap going into Easter Monday. And they've come off a poor performance. So they get a chance to review that. They get a chance to set some themes. And if one of them happened to be around our intensity and endeavour in the contest, they get 2 solid main sessions in a longer week and still get all their recovery in. And it's the best preparation. If you get that long week at the right stage, like after 4 weeks, we've played some good footy. We've got some footy here that we need to improve on, some areas we need to improve on. So it's not just that week, it's probably over the month. We need to improve here. Let's do some work on that now and screw down the things that we're doing well. And then they come out with a bit of freshness, with a bit of focus around particular areas. You put a John Newcomb into the middle who adds another little bit of grunt on top of where maybe that's an area you feel like you haven't been maxing out. And then you go and execute. So it's a really good... It's a really good template, and it's a bit of good fortune at the right time. But then Hawthorn have maximised it, and they got the result.
You're a big John Newcomb fan, aren't you?
Love him.
Yeah,
love him. I think, and I don't know his story. I will read up more about it. I know he's sort of come from the clouds a little bit, but he's cut his teeth through Box Hill and came in and had his opportunities there. And obviously his relationship with Sam Mitchell is really strong. And there's a little bit of synergy between being a late maturer and been passed over a few times. But what I see in him is a real confidence and belief and low anxiety. So he's going to be a really good competitor because it doesn't really look like much phases him.
Yeah.
He doesn't waste energy when he's out on the field. He's got real power, but when he's not in the contest, he cruises really well. There's no wasted energy in what he does, which means that he can commit absolutely to every contest that he's in. He seems to have a good tank because you don't see him knackered that often. So whatever his game time rotations are, they're managing him well. He's a good user, got good vision, and he's bloody hard, and he loves tackling. So there's a lot to like.
He might even have a rule named after him shortly too, just reading the AFL website yesterday, because the way he got to Hawthorn in the mid-season draft, he was the only player to nominate his own financial terms, and I think the AFL might be about to change that. It was very clever the way Hawthorn got in there. So if the Hawks are able to turn that pilot light back on, Bucks, how do you ignite Essendon if you're Ben Rutten, who wouldn't have enjoyed looking back over those edits? Players' chronic lack of desire and running and defensive pressure and all those things, all the fundamentals of the game. How would you seek to address that in a week?
Well, effort became a big part of the review of Essendon, hasn't it? And vision over the last couple of weeks that has sort of franked, the 1-4 record of 5 weeks. We've got to remember that Essendon played the 3 best teams in the competition in the first 3 weeks. They won a game narrowly against Adelaide, But then they lost to probably the team that's performed as well in the first 5 weeks as anyone has in Freo. But what we saw on the weekend, I reckon, was just a really clear indication of belief in system. The Fremantle players found energy, feel like they're executing role, they're up and about, and you gain energy from that, and it comes out looking like absolute effort because it's pretty close to absolute effort. The Essendon boys are a little bit they're feeling their circumstances in the win-loss, missing personnel that are important to them, lacking a little bit of belief in their system and their structure and what they're trying to achieve, comes out in a real lack of effort because they feel like their best efforts aren't rewarded or haven't been rewarded over the last couple of weeks, and the arse drops out of you. You stop working at the same level because you don't believe you're going to be rewarded for the effort that you put in. So that was a 10 out of 10 performance from Freo in terms of energy and hope and work rate. And Essendon were at the bottom end of the scale. Now you can't stay there. You can't lull in your own sorrows. So they've got some work to do. And Anzac Day comes at the right time. It gives them a chance to jump right into this contest and see it as a one-game snapshot. And I think this will tell us a lot about Essendon.
You know what else comes at the right time? The breaks. They've got 8-day break. So, hey, bring him out.
It's a bit of a Hawthorn philosophy going in for them, yeah.
If they've got time to set some themes, get a bit tougher training if they have to.
Well, but Collingwood have gone Thursday to Monday, so they've had a really long break.
The word knackered, Brad says in Bendigo, is clearly not used enough as an expression. So what under you, Bucks?
I think it really clearly defines what you're trying to talk about when a bloke has lost his energy and cannot take another step.
What about the arse dropping out of it? You dropped that one as well.
Yeah, come on, mate. We don't need to back over this stuff.
Okay. Some of your best work. I want to talk about GWS. They're in their 11th season, obviously. Leon Cameron has coached in 9 of those. So he would appear to be in the most difficult position a senior coach can be in. He made the hold on any contract talks between he and the club public, which I think speaks to a man at peace with himself. He's standing in the game, all of that. That's hugely admirable. But 1 and 4, he's been there for a long time. These are testing times as a senior coach.
They are, and look, it's difficult not to compare Leon's situation with where I was 12 months ago, and Jared sort of brought that up on 360 yesterday. What I would say about that is, yes, there are similarities, but who knows what's going on at GWS? Who knows what's going on in Leon's mind? We sit on the outside and we speculate, but we don't know if the similarities are probably in the win-loss, probably in the fact that the coach and the club are open, seem to be open-minded as to what the future is. He's spoken about, who's the right coach for the next 3 or 4 years. So there are some similarities in that regard. And he's also asked for a month, which is about...
I was going to mention that. Almost the exact same stage of the season, as Jared pointed out last night. April 19, yesterday, 12 months to the day. You said the next month will be defining.
That's about trying to take... That is about trying to take the heat, not off you and not off the discussion around your tenure. It's actually about trying to take the heat off your players so that they can narrow their focus into a sustainable bit of momentum and growth.
And you hope you can get some sort of foothold in that.
Yeah, correct. Like, not just for, you're human. You're human as a senior coach. You're battling. You're struggling for survival. You're trying to get your next breath. You're keeping your head above water. That's a reality. But as soon as that takes a hold in a football club, you're knackered. You're stuffed. So what you've got to do is try and understand those challenges. You've got to understand that stress level and the reality, the circumstance, but you've got to try and find something still achievable and short term to actually latch onto and to really focus on. Because if you don't focus on something positive, all the negative's going to flood in. So asking for a month or talking about a month, because that would be something that Leon would, I presume, go back to his playing group. We've got these guys. We want to be 2-2 or 3-1 over this next month. These are the KPIs that we're working on because this is the area of our game that we rate the most, that we know that when we do this, we give ourselves the best chance to win, and then you lock in. And then we'll find out whether GWS are capable of that. Just the same way as we find out whether Essendon are capable of that. Just the same way we find whether Port Adelaide are capable of that. So there's some teams that are really struggling for that foothold just to get some momentum going.
So the essence of almost buying yourself a little bit of time and hoping, of course, it can turn, which is, well, he hasn't made the same phrase. In fact, he was lured into talking about finals, Ken Hinckley, after the game at the weekend. He said Port can definitely still get there. He's still believing at Zip and 5. Yep. They're 18th on the ladder. Now, he's come in for some criticism off the back of that, Ken. Do you think unfairly?
Well, he was asked a direct question. Do you think you can still make finals? Now, if you're a senior coach, 5 rounds into a 22-round season, you're a competitor, you're a fighter, you're a believer, or else you shouldn't be in the chair. There's no way he goes, no, I don't reckon we can. I reckon our season's done.
Well, could he not, I agree with you, but playing devil's advocate, could he not say it's all about one foot in front of the other for now? We're all about the next week. And people on my side of the fence don't want to hear that either. We want to hear, don't get me wrong.
Just take it 1 week at a time.
Well, could he have not?
He could have, but I think what he said was authentic to him. And that is that I've been in this chair when we've won 5 and then we've lost 5.
And we've loved that about Kenny.
And we played finals that year. So we can lose 5 and then win 5 and then we can still make finals. And we can go on a run. I've got the belief in my players. I've got my belief in myself and my system that we can do that. They need to fix something that's broken though. And that is whether it's their defence to their transition offence or whether it's simply their ball use. Port Adelaide. So if you break the ground into 4 spots, you got your forward 50, your attacking mid. So that's the front half.
Yep.
Then you've got your defensive mid and your D50. Defensive mid is a great place to launch attacks from. So you turn the ball over, good system, and then you've still got just over half of the ground to use. So you've still got space and openness. It's not congested. So it really speaks to good offense. System, making the ground big, shifting the ball and controlling the ball and then going back and scoring from defensive mid-turnovers. This year, Port Adelaide have kicked 2 goals 3 in 5 games from defensive mid-turnovers. Last year, at the same, and they're 18th. Right. So they've only kicked 2 goals.
In 5 games?
In 5 games from defensive mid-turnovers. And Swans have kicked 16, Geelong have kicked 15, Freo 15, Melbourne, Carlton 13 each. So there's sides that are averaging more than 2 goals a game, and Port Adelaide have only kicked 2 in 5 weeks.
And last year?
Last year, from less turnovers, so they had 10 less turnovers. Last year, they kicked 18-6 and they were number 1 in the comp for turning the ball over in their defensive mid and then going back. So what that speaks to me, and you see it, the players are not confident or not sure of how they want to move the ball, how they're going to go from turnover to score, and they're probably, and Ken would probably say internally, and I know that if I was here, I'd be looking at our defensive system. Are we actually defending well enough? Because we're turning the ball over in the right spots, but are we in great shape to be able to go back the other way? And they're clearly not, because they've gone from 18 goals 6, number 1 in the comp from that. It's a very small sample size, but it speaks to maybe a bigger picture, to 18th in the comp, 2 goals 3. It's a big shift in 12 months.
The team they came so close to rolling too, Carlton we need to talk about next, because their third quarters and second halves have been a curiosity in the opening 5 rounds. How would Nathan Buckley go about fixing that, changing the script? We'll get to that after this. We're with Nathan Buckley here this morning on Waitley, thanks to Red Energy. Sam Edmund sitting in for Gerard for the week. Bucks, how do you solve a third quarter riddle like Carlton? So 3-2 in first terms, 4-1 in second terms, but 0-5 in third quarters, and outscored in those third quarters by more than 100 points across their 5 matches. It's been a dramatic drop-off after half-time. How would you look to reset?
Well, straight away, you just hand the players over to the club psych and go and have a coffee. No, well, I think
delegate.
I think one of the issues is actually being conscious of it, because if you're not conscious of it, it's potentially it can come and go and it doesn't become real. But I think it's definitely real. Like the players, the competition. And Carlton themselves are very aware of what's going on. So there needs to be a shift. It might be a placebo. It might be something they do at halftime. It could be as simple as doing 45 seconds of hands, lanes and bag work just before they leave the rooms, before they go out, just to switch them on. It might be, let's focus on the first 5 minutes and that we're going to win contested ball or that we're going to go harder and be intense and we're not going to rotate. This is the 18 that are going to go hard for the first 5 minutes. There'll be a little placebo or focus shift, and they want to arrest it now. But what I would say is it's too simplistic to say the third quarter, because they've had 2 games there where against Hawthorn and then against Port, where they've dominated the first quarter. The Hawthorn, they dominated the first quarter and then lost the next 3.
Dogs was similar.
So they're like, you can say they're really poor here after halftime. They're actually they're great starters.
Yeah.
But what it says to you is that when they get the game on their terms, they're really good. They're still not. There's still question marks on Carlton, because when the game is not on their terms, it's not. They're not just average. They're poor. So they need to improve that, and that is simplistically is whether it's clearance and forward half footy versus transition footy. And as the game goes longer, the more likely you are to get into transition footy or open footy. And Carlton, that's not their one wood at the moment. They're relying so much on stoppage and aerial power in the front half, and their one-on-one defenders that they're they've got to get better at being more efficient in transition footy, which will allow them to be better in second halves of games.
Speaking of Jacob Wettering a little bit later on in the show, so as a coach, would you sit them down and address it, or would that run the risk of creating a mountain out of a molehill, or would you just look to put things in place and let it take
Well, you don't
place?
have to address it, because it will bleed in.
Yeah.
Like if the media are talking about it, if it's on Twitter in some shape or sense, if one of the leaders' dads or uncles or cousins has asked them about it, it's in. So it's no use, putting your hands over your eyes, your fingers in your ears, and saying not listening. You've got to understand it. You've got to approach it, address it, and then make a plan around how you're going to remedy that situation. And it seems to me like the players have really strong confidence in the coach and coaching group, and that's another opportunity to reinforce that by making something better that isn't working for them at the moment.
When it comes to the tribunal or the match review process, did we have a break in the so-called players' code yesterday with the comments from Taylor Walker? So for those who've been living under a rock, Trent Cotchin only fined. He was actually cited, charged with kicking, and it was intentional, said Michael Christian, but the boxes that he has to tick, it was low impact as well. So, and it was to the body, so it was a fine. Tell you, before we get your thoughts on this is Taylor Walker on Trent Cotchin and the incident on Triple M Adelaide yesterday. Just with Walker, forget Mark Rashudo, you could hear you there for a moment as well. But that is unusual, is it not?
It is, but I think it's what we all think, isn't it? I think it's real. And this isn't a Cotchin v Walker thing, but I think the idea of stereotyping certain players is real. And I do think that there is attacks on some actions by some people at some times. I think that it's human nature to see that and to feel it. And I think the AFL will defend themselves really strongly on this, as they should, as they need to. But I think the reality, I think we've all got a gut feel that what Tex said is relatively spot on. Whether it's a fine to a month, I mean there's not that, but that is, and then even a year. Talking about Toby Green making a year, some of that is tongue in cheek. But I'd suspect that I thought Cotchin, it was a deliberate kick. That's got to be. There's got to be a week at least.
Well, then there needs to be a change in the matrix,
Correct.
The table of offences.
And I've heard there's a lot of discussion about that, and I understand the matrix is there to try and we're trying to take things from black and white to grey. Sorry, from grey to black and white for the people that are absorbing football, for the people that are passionate about football, for the people that love their clubs and want to know that they're being treated fairly. That's what we're trying to do with a matrix like that, and we still can't.
Yeah, it's a moving feast, the MRO, and Brad Scott did say yesterday in that press conference that, again, it would be something that they looked at throughout.
Well, the other one is, so Tex is playing, and he's doing a media spot, and he's being authentic, he's being open, But there'll probably be a sanction of some sort there. Now, it doesn't matter if you're Tex Walker or Trent Cotchin or Scott Pendlebury or Marcus Bontempelli. If you're making a comment like that, there will be a please explain of some sort, I would have thought. But then you take it to the next level. You've got to direct, once again, like Roo doesn't mind. He's a director, and there are responsibilities when you're involved in the football club.
He mixes it up.
And this is the challenge where you want people to show their personality and show their character, but you've got to follow the rules. So there's no happy medium there.
The hour has just completely flown since we said good morning to each other, Bucks. But before we leave each other, I've got to ask you about a man you know pretty well. He was at your club for, probably 4 years, played the 3 games at Collingwood. His name is Max Lynch. Now, just going back through his Insta there, Maximum Lynch,
Maximum lunch,
as he calls himself. He's about to get a big opportunity, at least on paper, at Hawthorn, because poor old Benny McAvoy's in a neck brace. Ned Reeves, who knows, might need a shoulder reco. And he's fit and he's available after a bee sting.
And he hasn't been stung by a bee. It's sometimes it's right place, right time, or wrong place, wrong time. He was stuck behind Brodie Grundy, and we tried him as a forward, as a second ruck, and he played a couple of games there. We actually schooled him up as a key back for a period, but his traits lend him to be a number one ruckman. So Hawthorn see that in him. He's played a couple of practice games against Max Gawn where he started really well, like had a really good 30, 40 minutes and then faded. But he's got some really good attributes. He's a great runner. He could use his running better. He's a lot fitter than he actually displays on a match day. He's got some really good aerial capacity. He dominated the VFL in 2020 in the pracky games that we played underneath our senior level. Absolutely dominated. So he's going to get a month. They go Sydney, Melbourne, Essendon, Richmond.
Melbourne. So he's got Gawn.
He's got Gawn. So Ladham's Gawn and Jackson, Draper, Nankervis. And I can just see, it's through necessity. I can see Sam Mitchell saying, maximum.
Give us your maximum for a month.
You've got a month, and then we'll reassess what we're doing with the ruck roll, because there's plenty of other options. You could still pinch hit if you needed to, so it's guaranteed, but it gives him a little bit of space, and he's been a survivor, and
good on him.
This is the opportunity we're looking for. Love these stories too, and he's worked bloody hard, so I hope he does well.
Yep, concussion, COVID, and then a bee sting, and now finally available. So we wish him well for the Hawks over the course of the next month. Bucks, been a lot of fun, mate.
Yeah,
Have
enjoyed
yourself
that.
a good few days.
Good work. Good morning.
Yeah, I'll work on that.